Hello and welcome to episode 234 of Quarkus Insights. Today we've got the second session of something we ran at the end of last year, which is the bold, the broken, and the burned. So this is part two because it was so good that we couldn't fit it all into one session because we kept asking Guillaume and Georgios questions. So we've got special guests, Guillaume and Georgios. Welcome. So I guess before we go jump back into the content, which was very good, which is why we wanted more of it, we can talk about news. There is some news this week because last week we released Quarkus 331, which was just a sort of a normal monthly release, but because we'd had a break over Christmas and didn't have a release, it did end up being a bumper release, I think. And I think, Guillaume, you wrote the release notes and it was a lot in there, wasn't it?
Yes, a lot more than usual. We finally came up with full Java 25 support. We more or less supported it until now, but we didn't have the runtime images ready, and a few other warnings were appearing from time to time. So we make sure the experience will be a lot smoother now. There's the new Quarkus Maven packaging that will make your builds a lot faster. Panache next. Whole new generation of Panache on top of Hibernate ORM and Hibernate Reactive with a new API, unifying stateless session and stateful session. A lot of work there, still experimental, so play with it and give us your feedback. And then a lot of updates to Hibernate. We updated to test containers too, also, and GUnit 6, so major updates. A lot of new security features all over the place. And also now we are requiring Maven 3.9 to build your Quarkus projects. So you cannot build with Maven 3.8 anymore. It was minimal, I think, until now was 3.8.6. And we moved to 3.9.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot. And the next release will be our LTS, won't it?
No.
Oh, nope. Out here. No. Aren't we glad you're here?
No, the next release
yes.
At the end of the month will be the LTS feature freeze. So you in 3.32, you will have all the features that will land in the next LTS. And then we have 1 month to stabilize the LTS before labeling it and stamping it LTS with 3.33 at the end of March.
Got it, yes. So from the perspective of the developers, next month is the LTS, sort of, except it's not. And from everybody else's perspective, which is the vast majority of the world, next month isn't the LTS.
Yeah.
Right. You can tell where my head is at. I'm like busy trying to figure out how I can get everything done in the next week.
The feature freeze is coming very, very fast because February is a short month. So next week is a feature freeze for this release 3.32 and the LTS also.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that in parallel to the LTS, at the end of March, we also release 3.34, which will be your regular feature release with the work we would have done in March. And yeah.
Cool. So 3.33 and 3.34 come out at sort of the same time?
Yes.
Oh, cool. That's nice. Because otherwise there would be a 2-month gap, wouldn't there, for the features?
Yes, we did that once and it was not good.
Yeah.
So we decided to do it the other way and release both at the same time, which is challenging, especially for platform contributors. I know that Camel Quarkus is sometimes struggling with this. We haven't found an ideal solution, to be honest. It's either not good one way or bad the other way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I do prefer it this way, though, because otherwise, from the Quarkus developer perspective, you end up sort of, if you don't make that deadline, then you've got like 2 months for your stuff to get out and get the feedback. And then from the user perspective, it means that there's too much pressure on the Quarkus developers to push stuff in that maybe should have waited a little while.
Yes, exactly.
and mistakes were made probably is a good lead-in to today's session. So can you remind me, both for the benefit of everybody else and for the benefit of me, where we got to last time? So I can
so
bring up the slides.
I had to look that up.
Yeah.
And we started chatting about APIs, right? That's where we got last time, where we started saying, okay, it's really hard to like find a good balance of like what should we use that's already there, what should we actively contribute to, what should we bring that's totally our own. And we had a lengthy discussion about that, but we didn't go into any details about any of these APIs, right? So we can start doing that now. Guillaume, do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to do it?
Oh no, please do it.
Okay, so the first thing that we have to talk about is the Panache data layer, right? So from the very early days of Quarkus, right, we knew that we wanted our data layer to be based on Hibernate because like Hibernate's an in-house project. It's super stable, super widely used in the Java community, and we actively, like, as Red Hat then and IBM now, were like the lead contributors to that project. But what we knew from experience is that like most applications needed like a layer, let's say on top of Hibernate, to simplify it, right? And this sort of idea existed in the Spring world with like Spring Data and JPA, right? It's been around a long time, so we knew that we needed something like that. So at the time, we came up with the new solution, like totally based on Hibernate, but the APIs that it introduced were totally different compared to everything else that existed back then. And we called it Hibernate ORM with Panache. Unfortunately, the name, sorry, let me take a step back. The name Panache was meant to be like, it's like an enhancement of something that already exists, right? Because the idea was then we'll do like logging with Panache, and then we'll do like, I don't know, REST with Panache or whatever, right? The problem is like the name Panache got very tightly associated with Hibernate, right? So now if you talk to anybody in Quarkus, with the Quarkus context about Panache, they'll automatically think Hibernate. Anyway, so
this is where I get to point out that naming is the hardest problem in computer science.
Oh yeah, we've made very bad naming decisions a lot of the times. I hope we're getting better, but yeah, we continue to we've made our fair share of bad decisions when it comes to naming. So what we did with Panache back then was like we took a dual approach, right? So we introduced two different kinds of APIs essentially. So it was an API that was like interface based, right? So it's vaguely similar to what Spring Data JPA was doing, and that's what most people were used to. But there was also this API where you could essentially, it looked like an active record style API, right? So you had your Hibernate entity, but then you also had these special methods on it, like save or like insert or whatever, right? And all of this, again, was built on Hibernate. So we've, years passed, so this is probably released like 2019, so it's 2026 now. So a lot of years have gone by. A lot of people have used it, continue to use it, and we've received a lot of feedback, right? Now, from what I have heard from multiple people, which I'll say that like doesn't correspond exactly to what some others have heard, but anyway, my perspective is that like this API layer might have been a little too foreign for Java developers, right? For better or for worse, like people were very used to Spring Data JPA or like Spring Data JDBC, for example. So anyway, the interface style pattern where you just define an interface and like stuff magically happens, and then you use the interface in a like a manner that's very different from what Hibernate prescribes, right? So with the interface layer that Spring Data gives, you essentially use the data layer as a stateless layer, right? So there you don't like use the entity. The entity doesn't the changes aren't tracked everywhere, right? Because the point here is that the Hibernate developers very much favor and think that the stateful solution based on entity manager, stuff like that, is provides a lot of benefits. But the way Spring exposed it was very different from what the initial let's say intent of the Hibernate developers was. Anyway, but the result was that people used it as Spring data exposed it. So anyway, we've gone back there, and we've made a lot of changes, which actually the timing is very good, because here in the slide it says coming with Jakarta data support, but now, as Guillaume and you, Holly, mentioned earlier, we just released 331 with this Panache 2 support. So essentially, we rethought all the Panache APIs, and we're using the excellent, you can use the excellent Jakarta data support, right? So Jakarta data is a new spec that uses the interface style pattern, but brings a more modern approach, like build time safety and stuff like that, to the pattern. Plus, it uses Hibernate stateless sessions behind the scenes. So it's more like it uses Hibernate more like a mapping layer, essentially, instead of like an active entity tracker throughout the application. So that we just released, and we're hoping that this will address a whole lot of concerns that people had. The naming, again, we haven't come up with it yet, right? So for now, I think we're just calling it Panache Next, right?
If in doubt, avoid giving it a name.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kicking the can down the road, essentially. Like I would hope that we would just call it like Quarkus data, just like we did, for example, with Quarkus REST or Quarkus messaging. I'm not a fan of names like Panache or Renard, or what else do we have? Like
Basically
Quinoa.
anything coming that Steph has come up with.
No, it's not always that, right? It's like a lot of people have come up with invented creative names like, I don't know, Chappie, Quinoa, I don't know, something like that. I get why they're saying it. I think it's confusing our users. But anyway, that's a different topic. So, Guillaume, what do you want to add here?
Yeah, I want to add that we need to find a name for Panache Next before coming up with Panache Next. So I don't know how much time we have, but we will have to figure it out.
I don't think Steph is going to be in any hurry to do Panache Next, because Panache Next was hard, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we won't need a Panache Next for, I don't know, 10 years. And by then, like, AI will be writing it. So okay, do we have any questions at this point?
We don't.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. Observability. Okay, so with observability, this one is like an ever-moving target, essentially, right? Because when Quarkus started, there were the only, I think, okay, so there was micrometer for the metrics at that point. For tracing, there was open tracing, I think, but these specs and like de facto standards, I should say, moved really fast, right? So like open tracing no longer exists. Now we have open telemetry, which open telemetry initially was targeting only tracing, but now it also has logging and it also has metrics, right? And essentially in Quarkus, on the metrics front, initially we only had a project called Small Ride Metrics, which was a implementation of a micro profile specification, but we got rid of it. Well, we deprecated that, let's say, and we pivoted correctly, in my opinion, to using micrometer for metrics. But now we have there's a tension here now that now you have on one side you have micrometer, which initially was only metrics, but now it's everything. And on the other side, open tracing, which was initially tracing, but now it's everything too, right? So you have two different APIs essentially doing the same thing, right? One is like our micrometer is like pretty much a de facto standard in the Java space, but then OpenTelemetry, on the other hand, is the standard that like all languages have. Well, most libraries and frameworks in various languages have sort of agreed that it's the way to go, right? So this is an ever-moving target. We put a lot of work into this. We try to minimize like the exposure for users to breakages, but that's not always possible. But we've done work to integrate this with logging as well, but that's also that's harder than we thought. Let's say, especially in the context of Quarkus, which there's a problem that's been brought up by a few colleagues lately that we don't actually have like a well-defined concurrency model in Quarkus. Basically, it's like every extension does different thing, which means that in the context of tracing, you don't always get like all the contextual information that you need, or in the logs and stuff like that. But it's all going to be addressed. Like most things work, and they work well. But there's always things to improve, and also we have done at some points we've done some work to like minimize the runtime footprint of this, but that's something we definitely need to look into more, right?
Is that the subject of the next community call, the context propagation? Is that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah. Go ahead and talk about that a little more if you want.
Yeah, so I think hopefully a lot of you know that we've started opening up some of our internal calls to the community, which is awesome. And the next one, I think, is it tomorrow or is it a week? Tomorrow. It's either tomorrow or a week tomorrow or in 2 weeks from tomorrow. It's some Tuesday. And the topic is context propagation, which I think about 3 people are really looking forward to talking about, and everybody else is really dreading talking about because it's really hard. But if you would like to come listen to us talk about the hard thing and have your opinions on the hard thing, which would help us, then you would be very welcome. And I'll paste a link to the community call into the chat. Oh, and the community call is tomorrow. Thank you, Spendus.
Excellent.
Excellent. So it's perfect timing. Yes. Come have the sort of the gory details on context propagation.
So Guillaume, anything you want to add?
Nope.
Excellent. Let's move on. So Jason, here, I'm sure you have a lot to say here.
Oh, yeah. So JSON is key, obviously, because everybody does JSON. At the beginning, we were like micro-profile shop somehow. So we had JSON-B together with all the other micro-profile specifications. And we made JSON-B the default. So we had Jackson from the start, but JSON-B was the default because it was like, okay, we provide somehow a micro-profile implementation. So here you go with everything default with micro-profile. We struggled a bit with JSON-B on performances, on some issues, bugs, and things like that. And at some point, we decided to move to Jackson as a default because it performed extremely well, because it's industry standard. Even if it's not a standard, it's the industry standard. And so we are still supporting both of them. So users can choose what they want. And also, some of our micro-profile extensions require JSON-B. If I remember correctly, the small I GraphQL extension, for instance, still requires JSON-B. Anyway, so that's for the JSON layer. And then recently, Jackson 3 was released, which comes with brand new packages all over the place. So at some point, we will have to switch to it. We are not in a hurry yet, and it's probably something that will wait for Quarkus 4. I think we can see a trend that when you want to install a Java framework for years to come, you will have a lot of changes because the ecosystem is changing. You will have new major versions of all the components you are using. They will impact your framework because your framework is wiring everything. So all these API choices, they are done at one point in time, and you will have to reconsider them a few times during the life of your framework. And sometimes you will have made best choice ever, and sometimes you will have to reconsider. And I mean, that's life because, it's not the same when you have an application that you just want to get done and released, and then you're done with it and you maintain it for years, but you don't plan major changes to it. When you are doing a framework, you have to keep it up to date. You have to keep it able to talk with the whole Java ecosystem, and that leads to a lot of changes along the life of the framework. So we are trying to make the transitions as smooth as possible. So when we deprecate something, we let you a few versions to actually move to the new implementation. But yes, I mean, that's life in tech. You have to
And we should add here that for the Jackson case specifically, we really want to avoid like having both Jackson 2 and Jackson 3 on the class path by default. Like we really want to avoid Quarkus extensions, like some of them being Jackson 2, some of them being Jackson 3, because Jackson, like it's pretty heavy in terms of how many classes it loads and how much time and how much the penalty it incurs on startup, right? We've seen like consistently add like 100, 200 milliseconds to startup, right? And like adds like, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 classes just to create like an object mapper, right?
So shameless plug, things are a bit better with the work we are doing with Project Leiden and IoT. So we will talk about that, I think early March.
March, I think, yeah.
Yeah, early March in Quarkus Insights. But yeah, and instantiating an object mapper is quite consuming. So yeah, we have to be careful about that. And we have seen it a few times because you typically, when you use Jackson, is used by Hibernate ORM when you map JSON to the database, and it's also used for serialization for REST. And at some point, we were using the same instance always. And the problem is that when you wanted to adjust the object mapper configuration for your REST services, you would impact the one used by Hibernate ORM, which might not be able to serialize what you have in your database anymore. So if you consider that we might have to instantiate several object mappers, and then you add to the mix that they might not be the same versions, you end up with something that is not extremely lean, and definitely not what we are trying to achieve with Quarkus. So yeah, we will fight hard to avoid having two versions at the same time.
Yep. Okay, so now community. Yeah, here's your folks thing.
Yeah. So the first thing is that I think we are extremely lucky with the community we were able to build with Quarkus. We have a lot of awesome contributions, fixes, bug reports that allows us to make progress. And I think the release cycle helps because people see that when they provide some feedback, we usually answer very quickly and the result of this feedback is usually included in the next micro version if it's a bug fix, minor version if it's a feature. So people have an incentive to provide feedback because we listen, and the result of it ends up in a release very, very soon. We have tried to build a nice contribution experience and to be nice people. So I think that shows. And when we meet the community at DevOps, for instance, that's something that people are often talking about, and something we are very proud of. At the beginning, we had, and that's something when you launch an exciting new project, you have a lot of new contributors that are popping up and putting a lot of energy because it's all new and they are excited. And then work life pops up and life pops up, and you have to get back to your usual life. But still, now we still have a lot of regular contributors that are not from IBM, and we also have a lot of occasional contributors who are contributing fixes, features, but maybe we talk about it a bit later. Yeah, I think we talk about it later, so I won't talk about the Quarkus yet. But then what we are trying to do, I don't think we are talking about it because this talk is from before that, but the community calls you were mentioning, Oli, we are opening the contribution experience a lot more and making sure that people can really be invested in the design decisions with the working groups, and that is really interesting to see how people get involved nowadays with all these new tools that we put in motion. So yeah, really a big thank you. I see you have updated the number of contributors. Thank you to all of them.
Yeah, I just changed the slides.
And let's. I don't know if you want to add something, Georgios.
No, I think you covered it completely. Yeah, we're super lucky, right? We feel blessed, that's for sure. It adds a burden on us for sure, to like ensure that this continues to work good for everybody. But like the amount of stuff we get back, both like emotionally and practically in terms of like improvements and ideas, is like off the charts, right? Quarkus would not be what it is without the community, for sure.
And fresh perspectives as well, because like I had it, one of the things that went into 331 is a fix for some test class loading defects, and I'd been kind of intending to fix it for ages, but I hadn't managed to yet, and it turned out to be a one-line fix that could have been done at any time by any of us, but none of us saw it, right? Because we were so invested, sort of immersed in it, that we were like, oh, this is really hard. And actually it wasn't that hard. And so there was like a 5-year-old defect and a 6-year-old defect, or a 4-year-old defect and a 5-year-old defect, or something like that, that got fixed by this fairly small fix that none of us had enough perspective to realize was possible.
Yeah, that's very cool. Not every day that you close a 5-year-old issue as fixed instead of like, oh no, it's okay. 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 So go ahead, Guillaume. I think we didn't touch on
so there are the contributors, and there's then the whole ecosystem around open source that is a lot of help also. So that the first people who actually helped us was GitHub, because at the beginning we were struggling with the number of runners we had, and they gently gave us a bit more, 3 times more, so significantly more, and that helped us a lot to be able to scale our CI and make sure the project would be able to make progress. We had a contributor from the very early times, Falco, who is the developer of something called the Gitflow incremental builder. This tool is able to figure out which Maven modules you should build to actually test your CI, to actually test your changes. So when you do a change to a module, it will find out which modules you should build to make sure that it's properly tested. And that helped us quite a lot because we have more than 1,000 modules in the core repo. So when you are actually changing just one tiny bit extension somewhere, instead of doing the full build, we actually just run the modules that are impacted by this change, which
Yeah.
is a major difference.
Let's just add here that like that's why for some like for contributors that like don't work day to day in Quarkus, they might see like some of their PRs will take like 3 hours to run, and others may take like 20 minutes, right? And this is the reason. Like if you're changing something like in Netty or something or Vertex, then that's going to run like everything. It's going to run all CI. But if you're changing like let's say one thing in like Liquid Base, it'll just run like the Liquid Base extension and the Liquid Base integration test, and that's it, right? Which is amazing. Like without this, like CI would be very difficult to scale.
Yeah, totally agree. CI to scale, and also the feedback loop that we have, because when you are just adjusting a simple extension, it's annoying to wait for 5 hours before merging the fix. So that was a really nice improvement. We also got a lot of help from a very nice guy called Tamas. So Tamas has been working on Maven for ages, and he has been very much helping us in everything related to the resolver, to the crazy things we are doing with the Maven build, to fixing weird Maven issues, to pushing ideas to us. So the way we are doing the new Quarkus Maven lifecycle that we introduced in 3.31 is coming from an idea from Tamas that he blogged about years ago, and he pointed me to this blog and said, "Oh, you should do it this way." And I was like, "Oh, yes, okay." And he has been extremely helpful. So thanks a lot for this. GradleLink also helped us in various ways. So you might not know that the Develocity service that they are providing is also working with Maven, and it provides caching for your builds at the Maven goal level. So when you are so this helps on CI, but it also helps locally, because you also have a local cache. So when you are building Quarkus in a row, it will reuse the cache and make sure that you don't run the same goal with the exact same output several times. And typically, I think at some point, the Quarkus built on my machine was like 5 minutes without test, just building the tree to get the jars. And nowadays, if I just do a build with changing something that don't impact the whole tree, it's more like 1 minute. So it makes a tremendous difference for the local experience, and also on the CI builds, together with the Git flow incremental builder, it made wonders. Still, we were very much struggling even with the additional runners we had. And at some point, we decided to experiment with offloading our CI to AWS. And for that, we are using Runzone, which is developed by a French guy who put that together. And it's completely magic. You just change your Runzone entry in your workflow file, in your GitHub Actions workflow file, and then it will offload the load to your AWS runner in your account. So you can provision your account with whatever you need for budget, and then it will run it automatically. And that also helped us scale in the past year. I think we put it together one year ago. And also, I think the last one, but maybe I forgot some. So if I forgot some, don't hesitate to ping me, and we will add you to the slides next time we do the talk. We had also a lot of interactions with Modern. They are the people behind Open Rewrite. We are using Open Rewrite as the base tool for Quarkus update. When you run Quarkus update with a CLI to update from one version of Quarkus to another, we are using OpenRewrite, and we also used OpenRewrite to manage part of the move from to the new Jakarta packages. So we rewrote the tree for several months before being ready, and one part of this transformation was handled by OpenRewrite. So yeah, it's very amazing how the ecosystem, the open source ecosystem at large, can provide resources and help other, and we also helped other projects because we provided fixes in various libraries along the years. So that's really cool, and that's really one strength of open source.
Okay, yeah. So Common House. So this is a recent effort, right? Well, recent-ish, let's say. We actually already talked about it. So we've blogged about moving to Common House because we wanted, like we said, we wanted to encourage even more contributions. So we've been open from the start, but yeah, some of the things like were hard for people essentially to contribute, or maybe for the employers of people who wanted to contribute, maybe things like weren't legally in the right order for them to allow their employees to contribute. So we've tried to address all these issues with our move to Common House. So essentially, like, the project isn't like owned now by a specific corporate entity. And we've, like we said, we've opened up our meetings. So every 2 weeks, I think, we have an open meeting where anybody is more than welcome to participate, add to the discussion we're having, raise points, whatever, tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, all that cool stuff. And of course, like all our discussions, like our written discussions are like either on GitHub or our Zulip chat. Used to be some on Stack Overflow, but that's dead now with AI and all that cool stuff. So yeah, we're open. We've always been open, but we're always open to suggestions on how to be more open and make things easier for contributors, right?
And if people want to hear more about Common House, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a Quarkus Insights just all dedicated to Common House, and really interesting discussion with Erin about why she made some of the decisions.
Yeah, it's an important move, and well, there was an announcement in between with Micronaut also moving Common House. So I hope it's going to be the one-stop shop for established projects that want to secure their future as an open source project, and that's very nice.
Okay, so yeah, I think Guillaume, you're the one that wants to talk about.
We'll do that part. So the current release cycle that we have doesn't really come from a decision. It was more like at the beginning of Quarkus, we were iterating extremely fast, and so we started releasing every week because we had critical fixes or major new features improvements every week. So why not release and get it in the hands of people, gather feedback, and iterate extremely fast. And we actually kept this release cycle until now. So it has been 5-6 years. So nowadays we are doing a new minor every month, except for December, because it's not we are doing the releases at the end of the month, and it's not extremely practical to coordinate a release at the end of December. We do a maintenance micro every week, and we sometimes do emergency releases when we have a critical CV that needs fixing. So I think a lot of people are appreciating this release cycle, the fact that when they have a problem, they get a fix released extremely fast. But some people also got tired of updating, and I can certainly understand that. At the beginning, when you develop your application, it's all nice to get the new features and fixes, but when your application is in maintenance mode, having to update every week and getting a new micro with new features and potentially regressions every month is not very practical. So we decided to come up with an LTS release every 6 months that would be maintained for 12 months. And for this release, once it's released, we release new micros every other month. And sometimes we do emergency releases in case of CVEs. So this release cycle is now extremely predictable. We used to be a bit chaotic, but now it's extremely regular. And if you want further additional support for longer for a given LTS release, we also have the products from IBM, from Red Hat, and maybe at some point from some other companies. We never know. And these are maintained for potentially longer. Every vendor can do whatever they want, really. But yeah, from the community point of view, LTS every 6 months, maintained for 12 months. There's one caveat, two. The first one is that it requires some work, and it can be a bit overwhelming at times, especially when you have to coordinate a lot of releases at once. The second thing is that it has become a bit clearer in recent times. Releasing that often, a framework that is so large is a bit challenging for on the other side, meaning Maven Central and the resources on Maven Central. So yeah, it's going to be a topic for the next months here to figure out how we can improve on that. But yeah, that's we will see how it goes.
Okay, so let's talk about what enables us to release every week, essentially, right?
Yes. So at some point we were at a time where some of the critical people were just clicking on GitHub to do things, ping people, and it was extremely problematic in terms of, it was extremely boring, and also in terms of velocity, and also in terms of buzz factor, meaning that if you lose someone, then everything goes very badly and you can't make progress anymore. So we put a lot of automation in place with a GitHub bot. We developed some extensions for automation on Java, so both for GitHub Apps and GitHub Actions. And we have been iterating to make our development process smoother, making sure that people would be pinged automatically, that we would add some labels automatically and things like that, the milestone, and a lot of other things. The build reporting also is important because our CI builds are extremely long and the log files are close to being useless because too long.
You just scroll and scroll and scroll and
yes,
scroll.
Exactly. So we have some tooling that analyzes the result of a build, extracts the test failures, and put them in a nice report for each pull request, and also on forks, so you can use it on the fork. And again, all of this is open source, so if you're interested, just have a look at it. And we also are using this framework for what we are calling the conversational release action. What we do for releases is that we create an issue, and then we discuss with an action that will do some work, ask you for some feedback, provide some important information for you, etc. And at the beginning, it used to automate very little. and just provide some useful information. And nowadays, most of it is fully automated. We just have the platform release for which we have a manual step. And that very much changed how we are doing the releases. And now typically the LTS releases are handled by Jan, who is also using this tool. And to be honest, it was extremely hard to train someone to do the releases because it was a lot of steps, a lot of different cases. If you are releasing CR1, 0, you are releasing the .1, but you haven't released the 0 because you found a critical bug. Then you release the other micros. Then you release the LTS, which comes with a different pattern. So it was extremely hard to even document it because you had like, if you are in this case, you have to do this and this, and if you are in this other case, you have to do. It was a nightmare. So this makes sure that it's fully automated and guided. And it made a real difference in how we work.
Cool. So, so one other piece that we added at some point, right? So let's rewind a second and remember what we discussed last time. We discussed about the Quarkus, right? Well, the Quarkus was essentially was a way to like extract Quarkus extensions from the core repository and put them in a place where like everybody knows where they are, and the tooling, the Quarkus tooling knows about it, right? So like when you search for an extension on codequarkus.io, you have it. But what that meant is that now you have code outside of the core repo that you don't know if it broke by some change that happened in the core repo. So let's say we changed something in the core repo. If you're like developing another extension and you don't actively like build Quarkus locally and try to see if it builds with the latest changes, you won't know if it fails or not. And that was problematic for us too, right? Because it's some of the things, okay, so some APIs are very well delineated, like what's public, what's not. Some are a little more, let's say, not well defined. So for us, it's very useful to know that, okay, you know what, it changed something, and like I want to know what other extensions might break, right? So we introduced something called the ecosystem CI, which essentially is like every night, it takes the latest commit of Quarkus, builds it, and then for each extension in the Quarkus, it builds that extension against Quarkus main, right? And then it collects all the data, and we as Quarkus maintainers can see like from day to day if something changed, and it also like it has automation where it like opens up a GitHub issue or stuff like that, right? So this is just another piece in the puzzle that helps Quarkus like decentralize from like one huge monorepo to more federated style of development, right? And I think recently we've also started using this for the LTS releases to make sure that the extensions, like you can have an extension that you want your main to build against Quarkus main, but you maybe want like a certain branch of your extension to always build against the Quarkus LTS release, right? So we have support for that as well. Now you've done a lot of work on this, Guillaume, so you probably want to talk about this.
I remember a lot of discussions with people along the years telling, "Oh, I found this amazing GitHub action on the marketplace. Let's install it and use it." And every time I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I have no idea where it comes from. I have no idea who maintains it." It's quite often you are giving some permissions to the action to check the code of your pull request, even sometimes to push to your repository, and this is extremely dangerous. So if you're not a high-profile project, then it might not be a problem, at least limited risk, but even so, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're extremely visible, you become a target, and frankly, we have seen a lot of supply chain attacks with people. You have the typical pattern of you have a nice guy maintaining an extension, and at some point he gets tired, and you have someone magically popping up saying, "Oh, no worries, I will maintain your code, and don't worry about it." And then the nightmare starts because the second person wasn't as nice, and he ends up putting some bad code and it creates some issues. So we have seen it a few times in NPM, and also in GitHub Actions, and it's really a problem that doesn't really have a solution, except you have to be extremely careful about who you give the permission to do something in your repo. So that's why we started the work on this. And also, it's dogfooding, so you end up, I think I ended up developing some features, fixing some bugs due to this work. So it's very nice to be able to work on with Quarkus on Quarkus problems and use our own stuff to solve our issues.
Marketing. Wow. We have a slide on marketing. Okay.
Yeah, you remember, it's about naming is hard.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, that was like, well, it's not, the naming is obviously the big thing, right? But it's not only that. Like just today, right? We're having a discussion about, what is the messaging that we're giving in Quarkus or in like our website, right? Is it correct? Is it up to date? Because like if you go to Quarkus.io, it says like a Kubernetes native cloud or whatever environment, right? Which sure sounded great in 2019 with Kubernetes everywhere and all that cloud native craze. But essentially what we've seen is that some people think that, oh yeah, you know what? Quarkus is only for microservices, or it's only for like native image, right? I just have a big monolith. Why should I look at Quarkus, right? It doesn't give me anything. I don't need a small footprint, so I don't need Quarkus, right? And that it means that there's a clear gap in what we're communicating versus reality, because in reality is that I'm obviously biased, right? But in my opinion, like Quarkus should be the de facto stack you reach for whatever application, and to try and use something else should be like the exception, right? But obviously we haven't communicated that correctly, right? Because the principles essentially in Quarkus, like the build time optimization, the developer experience, all that stuff we have is applicable to any Java application, right? It's just that it made sense in 2019 essentially to market it towards the cloud native crowd, because that was really the hype, and that's where we're essentially like a lot of Red Hat customers at the time were looking at. But yeah, that just says you like marketing is hard. Like something just doesn't sell itself just because it's good. It doesn't sell itself, right? You need to get people to understand what you're trying to do.
And the internet has a really long memory as well. Because just last week someone was saying, why do we say Quarkus is only for reactive? And we were like, but we don't say Quarkus is only for reactive, but you say it once and it just sticks for forever.
Yeah, and then like the three of us, right? Like we might have said something at some talk somewhere, or like answered a very specific question and then said something in a very specific context, and maybe somebody like took it out of context or didn't understand the whole thing, and like, oh yeah, it's only for native, or it's only for reactive, or it's terrible in this situation or whatever, right? So yeah, it's hard.
I think it's also that people like to put things in boxes and label things. So basically they have Spring, which was the de facto standard for everything. And then you have Quarkus, so you have to somehow differentiate it and say, okay, Quarkus, what it is, what does it better, and whatever. And they had to put it in a box. And also, I think AI is not helping because it's rehashing this old messages that were maybe somewhere. Typically, at some point we weren't that good on the message, but we weren't that bad either. And really the external world didn't help us to say, okay, Quarkus typically became extremely good at handling large monoliths. And typically, if you have a blocking Hibernate ORM application with a lot of entities and a lot of REST services, Quarkus is extremely good at it. And you should try it and see how faster it starts compared to the competition, and also see the footprint you have and the throughput you have with Quarkus on this large monolith. And I think you will be surprised. And that's maybe we should have a talk. Let's use Quarkus with a large monolith or something like that. But yeah, it's hard to. The Quarkus is a generalist Java framework nowadays. You can use it for everything, and it should be clear.
Okay, moving on. So AI, like really quick, right? Since we only have like 3 minutes. So the point here is that we made a very, I would say, good decision to incorporate LangChain4j into the Quarkus world, right? So we essentially, Dimitro, who leads the LangChain4j project, he works for Red Hat, now IBM. He works with us very closely. Like, he doesn't do Quarkus per se, he focuses on LangChain4j. But the fact that we work so closely means that like Quarkus is like the premier platform to run your Java AI infused applications, right? And this is definitely paid off, right? This it was a gamble, but I mean this embrace of LangChain4j has definitely paid off, because, for example, like the Quarkus LangChain4j is the in terms of stars, I think it's the most popular extension on the Quark universe, right? And like we have people using it and asking stuff all the time and coming up with new use cases, right? So it's definitely been very good. Now, what MCP, again, okay, we jumped on MCP last year. We have a dedicated extension, like Quarkus MCP server extension. We jumped on this, like our MCP server support and client support is like top notch. It's essentially you use the Quarkus model, like just a couple annotations, and you have an MCP server, right? With security, with all the good stuff baked in. So we've been keeping in line with all the trends, right, in the AI world. That's the whole point of these slides. Yeah, let's not go into this because we only have a couple minutes, and we've already hashed this out multiple times in other sessions. So conclusions, right? Some good ideas, some not very good ideas. But the most important thing, we keep on learning, we keep on improving, we keep on listening to people, and we'll be here for the long term, right?
Definitely. Any closing thoughts from you, Guillaume?
No, I'm happy we don't have to do a third session.
I was just about to threaten it, and then the conclusion slide came up. So yeah, narrow escape. And I think we don't have any more questions either from the chat. So I think we are good. Yeah, thank you both very much. Really interesting. I think that's exactly what we're like supposed to be doing on Quarkus Insights, is that sort of connection to the developers, reflecting on the choices, giving you the sort of the behind the scenes of like what went well, why did we make the decisions we made, where are we going in the future. So perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. See you.
See you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.